Hey everyone, welcome to the Roto Grinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevie TPFL. It's November, it's the 23rd of November, it's 2016. It's a Wednesday, and it's a jam-packed, action-packed, whole lot of basketball-packed type of slate tonight. We have 13 basketball games to talk about today, so I'm not even going to beat around the bush. I'm just going to bring on our guest, Notorious. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to get over this 4-game slate from tonight.
Well, as we were starting to get going here, Lou Williams finally decided he wanted to show up and play basketball. That was nice, a nice little 10-point little swing
Well,
there. So
yeah, I mean, it's not his fault when Jose Calderon has the best game of his career.
don't you love that kind of stuff?
Yeah, when what's his name? D'Angelo Russell gets rolled out. I was all pumped about Lou Williams and Jordan Clarkson, and then Jose Calderon just goes nuts. So it happens.
It happens, but on from Tuesday to Wednesday, we have 13 basketball games tonight, my friend. A lot to talk about, so we're going to jump right in. We're not going to talk Thanksgiving or any of this fun stuff that we have coming up. We're going to talk basketball, and we're going to start with Phoenix heading to Orlando to take on my Magic. Interesting basketball game here. We don't have a line on this game yet. I think it has a lot to do with waiting to see if T.J. Warren and Wilson or Tyson Chandler are going to play. I have them both questionable at this point. I know T.J. Warren's dealing with an illness, Tyson Chandler dealing with personal reasons, but that's the only injury news in this game. What's your thoughts here on the Phoenix side?
Yeah, so it's pretty mediocre matchup against the Magic. Should be a pretty close game, I imagine. It really all depends on the injuries, like you mentioned. If Tyson Chandler's out, I think Alex Len's going to be interesting. He scored at least 25 fantasy points in each of his last 3 starts. And as long as Alan Williams doesn't come in and go bonkers, he should see close to 30 minutes again. Eric Bledsoe has been interesting, really coming off of 2 of his best games of the year. He's probably going to be under-owned like he always is. Interesting tournament play there. And then Devin Booker, decent tournament play as well. A lot of people have been off of him recently. He's been pretty inconsistent this season, but we know the type of upside that he has, and the Magic aren't the best defensive team around.
Yeah, for sure. They don't play a lot of defense at all, in fact. So, yeah, the problem that I have with Phoenix is, especially on our sponsor site, rosters.com, they've raised up the prices on a lot of these guys on that site. We'll have some value plays here towards the end of the podcast for rosters.com. If you guys haven't checked them out, they do sponsor the pod. Use promo code Grinders over there. That way you guys get incentives. But the place that I'm looking to attack here, Alex Len on FanDuel, 5,200. I have a lot of interest there. If Tyson Chandler's out, it's a 7 o'clock game. We should get that news. You mentioned some of these guards. The guard situation is such a coin flip right now for me. But the thing is, we're getting some decent prices on these guys on FanDuel and DraftKings finally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Bledsoe's been really good lately. He's probably the most consistent of the bunch. I played Brandon Knight the other night, and, he did what he does best and just didn't do anything. So, yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts on their front court? Do you like Alan Williams or Jared Dudley at all?
Oh, Brandon Knight. Brandon Knight just decided he wanted to take the night off. Alan Williams is a guy that I've been looking at, averaging over a fantasy point per minute over the last 3 games. If we get the news that Chandler's out, I see no reason not to look at Alan Williams here against the Magic, right?
Yeah, I don't mind him. I usually like to, take a wait and see approach on some of these guys with such small samples. Him and Jonathan Gibson, another guy that really only played a few games with big minutes. So I'll probably fade him again and then just go with Alex Len. But I do see the appeal in tournaments.
And I don't think I've played Jared Dudley this year. He was a guy that I played at points last year. I'd probably stay away from Jared Dudley, to be honest. If I'm going to play a $3,900 player here, it's Williams a little bit more. I'd probably take a shot on him before I do on Dudley. Looking at the Magic side of things, all these guys are super cheap. Anybody pique your interest here?
Yeah, so they have the best possible matchup. Suns are ranked first in pace of play and dead last in points allowed per game. So we got to give the Magic offense a nice boost as a whole. They're typically a team that I've been avoiding this season, but it's such a good matchup that I'm at least interested a little bit. Elfrid Payton should see 30-plus minutes in one of the best matchups. I think you can use him in tournaments, and he's cheap enough that I suppose you could look at him in cash. But with 13 games, I don't think you need to go, take that big of a risk. Evan Fournier is probably the best cash game option of the bunch. He sees 34 minutes a game, and he has the highest usage on the team, so I don't mind him.
Yeah, if you want 25 fantasy points, Fournier is your guy. I think I agree with what you're saying here. If I'm going to play any of these guys in cash, it would probably be Fournier. But in tournaments, I have a lot of interest in Elfrid Payton tonight. He's pretty cheap just about everywhere in the industry tonight. And like you mentioned, this is a great matchup. I love pace-up games for teams, and that's what the Magic are going to see tonight. And I think Elfrid Payton gets the biggest bump. He can definitely run here with Phoenix. So this game being Orlando probably slows down a little bit. I'm sure you would agree with that, but I still think Payton gets the bump here. And what's your thoughts on Vooch against Alex Len?
So if you could guarantee that he would play 30 minutes, I'd be all over him. Even on FanDuel at 6,300, DraftKings always seems to price him way down, which I love, but he just hasn't been getting the minutes. I'm a little worried. Serge Ibaka's been playing pretty well lately, and they like to give Bismack Biyombo quite a few minutes off the bench. This is a spot where, I expect him to see some decent minutes. The Suns usually play pretty big. So, I do like him in tournaments, but definitely not a cash game guy.
Yeah, I agree. It's just, man, that trade for Ibaka is just so dumb. God, it's so dumb. If you're going to do that and bring in Biyombo, just make your Vucevic trade because that's what you're setting up for. And you're just not playing him. Angry Magic fan. We'll move on. Atlanta at Indy. We have a lot of injury news on the Indy side here. Try to get through it all real quick. Turner's questionable. Miles is questionable. Paul George is questionable. And Jeff Teague is questionable. So luckily for us, this is a 7 o'clock game. We should get a lot of news here. There's no line in this game. What are we doing here with the Pacers in this game? Or is it just we have to wait and see who plays and who doesn't?
Yeah, you have to wait and see. Jeff Teague's probably the one guy that you can look at no matter what. He's been awesome the last few games. But if Paul George comes back, if CJ Miles comes back, I really don't want to play him in a pace down game against Atlanta. So, I think it's just going to be wait and see. You can play Thaddeus Young if Miles Turner's out. You can play, Glenn Robinson if Paul George is out. Monte Ellis will see a boost as well. It's just really going to depend on who's active in this one.
Yeah, what if Teague sits too? I know he sprained his ankle in the game on Monday. That's a quick turnaround for a sprained ankle on a Wednesday game, so it wouldn't shock me if he misses this game. Are we looking at Monte Ellis if it comes to that?
Oh yeah, it would be all the Monte. They don't really have a great backup. Rodney Stuckey's still on a minute restriction, so yeah, I think it would be fire up Monte night.
Oh man, oh god, and that's what we're looking at on Indy. Okay, all right. Any interest in Al Jefferson if Miles Turner sits?
Maybe a little bit in Kevin Seraphin off the bench. He had 25 the other night, and Jefferson had 15, which wasn't bad. But I think I'd probably rather have Seraphin. I think he's a little bit cheaper too.
Yeah, he probably should play more minutes than Jefferson too, right? Jefferson, I think, is limited to 20 minutes a game this year.
Yeah, pretty much.
Looking at the Atlanta side, man, I watched that game on Tuesday night. They were super flat. They didn't have any energy, and it led to a lot of the bench guys getting a lot of run. I hate that. It's just you can't project that kind of stuff.
They were down by 30 at the end of the third quarter in a game at home against the Pelicans with Anthony Davis not playing the second and third quarters. I don't get it.
Yeah, I'm telling you, man, they were flat and they were missing open jump shots. It was just a weird thing to see on a team that wasn't playing the night before.
Yeah, it was really weird. But the good news is their starters didn't play that many minutes, so they should be fairly fresh for this game. It's a pretty nice matchup against the Pacers, ranked 24th in points allowed per game. So it could be a good spot for them to bounce back. I think my favorite of the bunch is probably Paul Millsap. He has been trending in the right direction. He only played 23 minutes last night. And his price is still under $8K on both FanDuel and DraftKings.
You like Millsap. I like Dwight. I think it's a good bounce back spot for Dwight. Who's going to guard Dwight Howard on this Indy team if Miles Turner's out?
Yeah, he's one of my favorite tournament plays as well. 7,700 on DraftKings is just too cheap, and he's averaging close to 1.3 fantasy points a minute, which is right up there. He hasn't been playing a ton of minutes, but I think that's really helped him, stay fresh throughout the game. So I do like that call quite a bit.
Yeah, I think he only played 19 minutes. So he should definitely be fresh here on a back-to-back. So I'm not touching. It's a 13-game slate. I'm not touching guys like Corver, Bazemore. I'm just not going there. Schroeder. Like, I love taking point guards against Atlanta. So if Teague plays, definitely a lot of interest there. If he doesn't play, we talked about Monte Ellis. So let's move on. We have San Antonio heading to Charlotte to take on the Hornets. The only injury news here that we have is Zeller is questionable. We have a 199.5 total. San Antonio's favored by only 4 in this game. You think that line's a little fishy?
Yeah, anytime we see kind of a fishy line, we know typically the Vegas likes the home team in this spot. And, the Hornets have played well this year, so I could see them keeping this one close. But from a fantasy perspective, not a ton of interest in either team here. Like you mentioned, low total. Both these teams are top 10 defenses in the NBA. And, it's just tough for me to want to play anyone here. What about you?
Yeah, like the problem that I have that if you're going to pay $8,500 for Kawhi, aren't you finding that extra like $1,400 for LeBron and Durant?
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I was going to say. So, Kawhi is fine. He's going to get you 35 to 40, but I don't think he has the same upside as Durant and LeBron. And, I guess I kind of like Pau Gasol a little bit in tournaments. Hornets haven't been great against centers, and his minutes and production have both been, trending up over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think he's a fine play. I don't think he's anything that I'm going to go out and have to have tonight. LaMarcus Aldridge sat last time out. He should be well rested. I like, for some reason, I don't have any data to back this up, but I like guys coming off of a pop rest day. And LaMarcus Aldridge actually has a pretty good matchup here. I could use him in some tournaments on the slate.
Yeah, we need somebody to run a study for us. That'd be an interesting thing to look at for sure.
Yeah, because me and you do not have the time to do that. Looking at the other side here, Charlotte, Frank Kaminsky would return back to practice on Tuesday. The bigs here are such a roulette type thing that a little interest in Spencer Hawes if we get the news that Zeller's out, but tournament only. And Roy Hibbert, if he was playing 25, 30 minutes like we seen on opening night, then I'd have interest, but I just don't see his minutes getting up there.
For me, it's a flow chart kind of thing. Number one, are they playing the Spurs? If yes, then you go to the next one. Are there any elite value plays? If no, then just fade everyone.
Yeah, but that's why I was looking at Haas under 4K on FanDuel. He's a guy that could do stuff against Pau Gasol and LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, I just don't know how many minutes he's going to get. I do think it's fine for the price. I just don't know if I'm going to go there.
Yeah, I probably won't go there either. Let's just move on. Like you said, are you playing the Spurs? Yes. Let's move on. Memphis at Philadelphia. James Ennis is out for this game. I think they said he's out for 2 weeks. Chandler Parsons, questionable. Anytime you see Parsons with a questionable name, you almost have to expect doubtful. We'll have to see how that injury news goes. We have a 196.5 total. Memphis favored by 4.5 in this game. Another low total. Any interest on the Memphis side here?
I don't see Parsons going in this one either. We could see quite a few minutes from Tony Allen and Vince Carter, which is that combination would have been deadly on the wing 10 years ago. Both are really cheap and both should play 30 minutes in this one. I think they're at least decent punts. Vince Carter's been playing big minutes, and he's actually had a couple of highlight dunks too. It's been kind of fun to watch. But for me, Mike Conley's the play here. He's really been underrated this year, even though he got that big contract in the offseason. The Sixers ranked 27th in fantasy points allowed to point guards. Yeah, what are your thoughts on Conley?
Yeah, highest paid player in the NBA.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Oh, it just drives me insane every time I have to actually physically say that, and it has to come out of my mouth. I like him a lot in the spot, but on FanDuel, shooting guard is a position that I love saving money. And if you're telling me Tony Allen's going to get 30 minutes at 3,900 against Philly, like sign me up. And it's
30,
weird, right?
yeah, and 3,300 on DraftKings.
Oh yeah, just ton of interest in him and Vince Carter here. Like the minutes are secure, and as bad as that sounds, it's true. And with minutes, these guys they're not putting up a point per like a fantasy point per minute, but like we don't need a fantasy point per minute out of their price. So I think they're both very much in play here, and I do like Conley, and I have a little interest in Marc Gasol too.
Yeah, on the season, Allen and Carter both averaging 0.7 fantasy points a minute. So if you give them 30 minutes apiece, that's a projection of around 21 fantasy points in a mediocre matchup. And obviously this is a much better matchup than that. And yeah, like you mentioned, Marc Gasol, definitely a guy that goes under-owned on a nightly basis. Should have a good matchup here too. Yeah, I mean, Sixers don't rebound well. They don't defend the centers well. I'm on board with all these guys. You could even stack them a little bit.
We like Joel Embiid. He's been a guy we've been using a lot this year. His usage rate, if he was qualified, would be right up there with Westbrook and all these other guys. He's not, because he doesn't play a bunch of minutes and he doesn't play a bunch of games. What's your thoughts here on Embiid against a guy like Marc Gasol?
So, I was kind of off of him the other night when he played Hassan Whiteside just because I thought that was a really tough matchup. He put up 35 fantasy points. He really he's yet to have a bad game. I think his worst fantasy outing's been 21. So even though Marc Gasol is a great defender, I still think you can play him. I still think he's too cheap on FanDuel at 5,800. And his price on DraftKings actually come down to 6,000. And over on rosters too, 8,900. I think he's still a good value.
Yeah, when we're looking at a guy so anytime he's played over 20 minutes, his lowest fantasy point is 26.5. So, as long as he's getting 20 minutes, he hasn't put up less than 26 fantasy points, and we look at some of the matchups, he hasn't had some of the best matchups, and he's done it in tough matchups. So, if this game stays close and he plays his 25-minute, and then you're looking at, finally some upside at 38 fantasy points type.
Yeah, I agree. I like him quite a bit. He's really the only Sixers player I'm looking at. Jahlil Okafor, they took him off of his minute restriction, but he only played 25 minutes the other night. So until he gets up to, high 20s, maybe even 30 minutes a night, I think we can stay away from him.
Yeah, I was playing Rodriguez a lot, but now his minutes have been kind of all over the place, and I'm just not going there. I think I'm with you. I think Embiid's the only guy here. It is a 13-game slate. We can kind of be picky, which is not a bad thing. So let's move on. We have Portland at Cleveland. Here we go. Some fantasy goodness. 218.5 total here. Cleveland favored by 11.5. Vegas expecting a little bit of a blowout here, but one of the higher totals on the slate.
Yeah, it's such a tough spot for Portland. Second leg of back-to-back road games, and they have to face the defending champs in Cleveland. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a blowout here. But Portland, they've shown that they have the ability to compete with anybody on any given night. So if you look at Damian Lillard, he has a pretty decent track record against the Cavs. He's had at least 45 fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 meetings against them. CJ McCollum's been pretty matchup-proof all season. And Maurice Harkless has been a nice value play with Al-Farouq Aminu out. So I'm fine if you want to look at any of them in tournaments. I'll probably be avoiding them in cash just because of the potential blowout.
Yeah, definitely tournament plays here tonight, which you'd see this total and you'd be like, oh, why aren't we looking at these guys in cash games at 218.5? But like you said, it's the second half of back-to-back, and they have to play one of the better defensive teams in the league. I think Lillard's the play here. He hasn't had that big game in 5-6 games. He's just been kind of mediocre, and this is a spot for him to get right. Like you mentioned, plays really well against Cleveland, and when we're picking on Cleveland, we're picking on Kyrie Irving's defense, so that's where we're going to go here. Looking at the Cleveland side of things, I like LeBron a lot on this slate. He's going to be the guy for me at small forward here. I think I'm going to pay for him over Durant.
Yeah, you got to consider him one of the safest cash game options available. He doesn't have a ton of 60 fantasy point games, but he rarely has one less than 40. And in cash games, we just want that high floor when we're going to pay up for somebody. So I really like him, and he's too cheap. 9,500 on DraftKings just seems like a steal a little bit. I'm good with Kyrie Irving and Kevin Love as well. Both of them a little more expensive than I like to pay in a potential blowout, but I think you can look at both of them too.
Yeah, even in a blowout, we're gonna get a good solid 3 quarters out of these guys tonight. So in 3 quarters in a pace-up game, I think we could definitely get some value out of these guys tonight.
Yep, I agree. Tristan Thompson probably don't need to go that route with such a big slate, and same thing goes for J.R. Smith.
Yeah, the only thing with J.R. Smith is like he returned. He played 25 minutes against Detroit, and they haven't played in what 4 or 5 days. So I expect J.R. Smith to be conditioned and good. Like I expect him to play his normal amount of minutes here, and he's pretty cheap. So I don't hate him as much as other people probably will here on this slate.
Yeah, he's cheap. He's got that going for him, and he should be well rested. So, I like DraftKings that awards a 3-point bonus. Definitely could be worth a look in tournaments.
LeBron on 4 days rest. Oh, buddy. Oh, man. Miami at Detroit. Oh, so we do have a little bit of injury news here. We have a 189.5 total in this game. Detroit favored by 4.5. Miami, Winslow is out already for this game. Dion Waiters is questionable. He's been playing through the groin injury, but as you informed me before we started, no games on Thursday, so this could be a good spot for them to get him a couple days extra rest. So it'll be interesting to see if he plays. And then Willie Reed has already been ruled out for Miami as well. We'll start with Miami Heat going to Detroit here. Anything pique your interest here?
It's just such a tough spot. Both of these defenses ranked inside the top 6 in points allowed per game. The total for this game set at 190, which is probably going to end up being one of the lowest 2 or 3 in the slate. I think you can look at Hassan Whiteside. He's finally been playing 35-plus minutes a night, which is something that we haven't seen from him in his career, at least yet. And his production so far has just been skyrocketing. In his last 3 matchups against Andre Drummond, he has at least 38 fantasy points in 2 of them. So, I mean, he's played well in this matchup before, and I don't mind going that route. I think the rest of the Heat are more secondary options than must plays.
Yeah, Whiteside's going bonkers in this game. We love centers against Drummond, and we have a guy that has a massive usage rate already. One of the highest for centers, right? Like I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, but
yeah, it's like Embiid and then Cousins and
Whiteside. So massive usage rate against bad defense. Whiteside should go. He should have a really big game here. He's the one guy that I really do like. I don't mind Josh Richardson. You have to play shooting guards. We talked about some cheap ones. He's another cheap guy that should be locked into minutes with Winslow out in this game.
So I believe he's shooting like 38% from the floor, which isn't great, but he's $4,300 on FanDuel, and Spoelstra says that he wants him to keep shooting as often as he can. So I actually like that call quite a bit.
Yeah, if you get the green light from the coach, like all we need is one of those positive regression games, and we're looking at a 44 fantasy point game,
Yeah, especially with Winslow out, and if Waiters gets ruled out, I mean that's just an even bigger bump. So I do like that call. Tough match against KCP, but he could handle some of the point guard duties as well.
KCP, you know me. Detroit side of things here, I don't see a lot in this game that really piques my interest.
Yeah, so you're not down with KCP?
I'm not. I'm so sad that like the 2 or 3 spots, like I was wrong on them earlier, but like the Houston game I think was Monday, right? Sunday or Monday, and yeah. I was traveling back from Miami, and I definitely would have played him against Houston. Like wouldn't even have thought twice about it.
Yeah, I brought him up on my Grinders Live show with Dan, and I just thought of you the whole time. So
yeah, I would have definitely approved that. You would have had the Stevie approval. Yeah, just nothing piques my interest here with Detroit, I'll be honest.
Yeah, he'd have ranked 3rd in points allowed per game, 6th in fantasy points allowed per game. Pistons totals well under 100 points. I agree with you.
The only guy that I could see having just a very slight interest, because I just pulled up his price on FanDuel, Marcus Morris is only 5,100. I might fall into that trap on a couple teams.
Oh, man, he's the worst. I can't get him or Tobias right.
Yeah, straight up. But like we're looking at a guy that's averaging over 30 minutes per game. Like all we need is a few extra, couple easy buckets. And with Winslow out, I feel like he's a little bit of a mismatch here, but it's all about making baskets, and he just hasn't been good at that this year.
Yeah, you need to be better at that. Be in the
So
NBA. I don't
annoying.
know what he's doing.
So annoying. Let's move on. We have Boston at Brooklyn here, 214.5 total. Boston favored by 7.5. Crowder questionable in this game. It's always interesting when we see a guy, kind of get a setback when he's been dealing with an injury. He missed, 8 games, and then came back and already dealing with the same type of injury in his ankle, dealing with pain. Crowder's a tough guy, but it certainly worries me, so we'll have to see what happens here. But Boston in a really, really good spot here against Brooklyn.
Yeah, such a good matchup. Nets are 29th in points allowed per game, which is second only to the Suns. So we can load up on the Celtics. And like you mentioned, if Crowder sits, I think that's a nice boost to Avery Bradley and DeMarcus Smart, who hasn't been playing that great off the bench. Isaiah Thomas has been my go-to play, though. If I had a man crush in the NBA, it'd probably be him. I mean, he's just awesome. How can you not like Isaiah Thomas?
I like him. I've liked him since the Sacramento days, man. Like
Yeah.
I like this guy a lot. And isn't Brooklyn playing at one of the fastest paces this season?
Yeah, you would think as like a bad team, you'd want to slow the pace of the game down, less possessions and that kind of thing. But yeah, they're second fastest pace in the NBA.
Which is great for fantasy for us. Avery Bradley, probably one of the safer options on the slate if Crowder gets rolled out. I really like him in the spot. I know he hasn't been great lately, but this is a spot for him to get right. I do like Thomas. What's your thoughts here on Al Horford? We've talked about centers, but when we're looking at price per or point per dollar, he's a guy that stands out to me on this slate.
Oh, completely agree. Last 2 games, he's just gone nuts since coming back from his concussion. He's had 48 and 43 fantasy points, and he hasn't had any kind of minute restriction. I think he's played at least 35 in both of those games. So I think you can play him. Nets one of the worst rebounding teams, and they're ranked 26 against centers. I think a lot of people will still be afraid to play him for some reason. I don't think anybody's going to really notice how well he's done in the last couple games, so I like him quite a bit.
Yeah, there's just so many centers on this slate. Like we talked about Dwight, we talked about Whiteside, now we're talking about Horford. Like center is not going to be a position that's going to be heavily owned tonight, so I feel like this is another good spot we can look at. Looking at the Brooklyn side of things, anything here for Brooklyn?
All right, so not to change the subject, but Lakers are down 1 with 13 seconds. Who gets the last shot?
Lou Williams.
All right, I'm going to go Swaggy P. We'll see what happens.
Lou Williams coming back to life here a little bit, helping me out.
All right, anyway, for the Nets, I mean, the Celtics haven't been nearly as good defensively as they were a year ago. I don't love a ton of guys here, but I do think Brook Lopez is interesting. He's averaging 40 fantasy points in his last 3 games, and his price on DraftKings is just sitting there at 6,700, which is a few 200 too cheap.
I wish they'd just lock in Bojan for 30 minutes and we could play him because if Crowder's out, they've been so bad against small forwards with Crowder out of the lineup this season, and it's just such a roulette that we just don't know who to play. I have a little interest in Bojan in tournaments just because the matchup is so juicy if Crowder's out.
Yeah, I would be too. Just give him 30 minutes, and I'd be fine with taking him. Even in cash games, I think you could play him at 30 minutes. But none of these Nets are averaging over 28 minutes per game, which is just really tough from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah, super frustrating is what you were trying to say. It's okay. I got your back.
Swaggy P.
Did he really take a shot?
Nailed it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, whatever.
Oh, yes.
I was more hoping I'd squeeze a few more points. My lineup got up to 315, so I finally got on the right side tonight, so we'll see what happens. But all right, let's move on. All right, I know we're going to have different opinions of this game. Toronto at Houston. We have a 217 total here. Houston favored by 3. No injury news. We'll start with the Toronto side. What's your thoughts here on this Toronto team?
So we're going to have differing opinions. Do you not like this game?
No, there's a guy that I don't like that I think you'll like.
We'll see. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I know who that is. Yeah, so surprisingly, the Rockets haven't been that bad defensively. I mean, they're still ranked below the league average in most categories, but it's only 18th in points allowed per game. So they're not nearly as bad as they were a year ago. But Vegas still likes Toronto in this spot, and that's good enough for me. I'll take as many shares of Kyle Lowry and DeMar DeRozan as I can get. Lowry leads the NBA in minutes per game, and I'm not too concerned about his matchup against Patrick Beverley. Beverly's still only playing minutes in the 20s. And, like I mentioned, such a high usage and so many minutes for Lowry that I think you can still play him. And then your boy DeMar DeRozan.
My boy.
The guy has the third highest usage in the NBA. You
Don't care.
You got to like him.
I don't like a guy that only just shoots baskets.
He has some peripherals.
I will say that this year they have been better. But, okay, so as a tournament player, I don't ever play DeRozan because, he'll hit 50, maybe once or twice a month, and, okay, that happens. But, the nights that he scores 25, I'm ahead of 30% of the field, and I'll take that every night because, I'm just not a guy that thinks DeRozan just can continue to do this.
I get it. I mean, he scored at least 40 in 11 of the 13 games. That's
sure,
crazy.
but he can go 40 at 9,400 all he wants. It's just that's not giving you the tournament value that you need.
Yeah, but when that's your floor, I mean, that's pretty good if you ask me.
No, and so fading him against Houston is going to be really hard tomorrow. I will say that, but I'll probably do it. I'm not going to lie to you. I'll probably have more exposure to Kyle Lowry than most, and hope that for some reason James Harden decides he wants to play defense tonight.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think you can fade him on FanDuel. At 8,700 on DraftKings, he's a little more appealing. I still like him quite a bit in this spot. Definitely a good cash game option. Like you mentioned, maybe not, 50 to 60 fantasy point upside, but the matchup's definitely there.
If you're playing cash, I definitely think you look at DeRozan here tonight. If you're playing tournaments, I'm going to continue to say I think you should fade him. And I'm going to say that all year. You guys can keep tweeting me, but you can keep tweeting me when he scores 40 fantasy points and doesn't go 6, 7x. And if you're going to pay $9,400 for somebody on this slate, it's not going to be DeRozan for me. It's going to be $400 more for LeBron, or I'm going to be looking at, going down to some of these other guys. Why? Okay, so let me ask you a question. We have DeMar DeRozan at 9,400 on FanDuel, right, against Houston. We have Steph Curry 8,800 against LA. We have Karl Anthony Towns 8,700 against New Orleans. Why am I paying up for this guy when I can just find players in the same price range that have way more ceiling?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he has just as high as floor as those guys, though.
The floor, yes.
Curry at this point.
Yeah, the floor. I never disagree with the floor. The floor's there. It's 40 points this year, but at 9,400, I need the ceiling, and it's there maybe once or twice a month, and I'll take my chances.
Yeah, I agree. I'd get aboard that.
Outside of those two guys, is there anything here for Toronto that we're looking at outside of DeRozan and Lowry, or we're just kind of leaving the role players alone?
If DeMarre Carroll is active, he's
that guy. God.
So, I mean, they're going to put him on Harden probably, and I imagine he'd play minutes in the high 20s. He's 3,800 on FanDuel and 3,500 on DraftKings. I'll have a share or two.
That guy's so frustrating. It's just not him as the coach, but anyway. Houston side of things, James Harden's good at basketball. It's as easy as that.
Yeah, he played bad against the Pistons the other night. So had 50 fantasy points. Just keep playing him. The $2,200 price difference between him and DeRozan, I'd rather have Harden on FanDuel.
Look at that. Coming aboard.
You won me over.
Getting that 70-point ceiling instead of 45. Just kidding. He has a 55-point ceiling. Anyway, I'm going to take shots at DeRozan all year. If you guys listen to the podcast, it's going to happen every time he's on the slate, just so you guys know ahead of time. Definitely like Harden here. What's your thoughts on Trevor Ariza? Continues to be in that price range that I just keep on clicking his name.
Yeah, I'm the opposite. I can't play the guy. I don't know why. He's been fine this year. He's shown some decent upside. Maybe it's just because I'm mostly a cash game guy, so his up and down nature is a little too rocky for me.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that from your perspective. It's just I know Trevor Ariza has those 35-point fantasy games in him, and he just continues to be that $5,200 price tag, and I hate paying up for small forwards, so I click that little green button next to his name way too much.
Yeah, the guy that I really like here is Clint Capella. He's just been awesome. At least 34 fantasy points on 4 of his last 5, and he's had at least 28 in 6 straight games. So I think you can look at him in all formats. A lot of people are starting to come around to him, but his ownership has still been lower than it it should be.
Yeah, I do like Capella, another center that, just a lot of centers on my radar here tonight. It's going to be hard to narrow down that list, which makes it a really fun slate. Any interest in Eric Gordon kind of leading that second unit for scoring now?
I actually like him better off the bench than I did as a starter. He's still getting the same minutes, around 32 a game. And, he's been getting a little bit more shots. I think his usage is up around 4% in his last 3 games. So I like that call, especially on DraftKings with the 3-point bonus.
Yeah, people that don't look at bench players that get usage, it's a thing. It's been a thing for a couple of years now. And let's move on. We have the Clippers heading to Dallas to take on the Mavericks. No line in this game, probably because Dirk's questionable, Barea is out, Williams is questionable, Harris is questionable. A lot of injury news here. 8:30 game. Probably, I almost have to think it's going to be a blowout.
Yeah, you forgot Bogut. He's doubtful too. So.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the Mavericks put up a good fight against the Spurs the other night, which was surprising, but they're just not going to be competitive with this lineup night in and night out.
And you can't expect them to be. Like, if we get news here that Dirk returns and Williams returns, then I have a little bit more interest in a guy like Harrison Barnes. We know he's just going to play just a boatload of minutes no matter what. So in close games, Barnes is going to be a guy that I'd play because we're going to be looking at like 39 to 42 minutes.
Yeah, he's going to play a ton of minutes and see a bunch of shots. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think having Dirk back might take some of the pressure off of him. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. You can use Seth Curry on FanDuel. He's still pretty cheap over there, but he's going to go up against Chris Paul. Not a matchup I like to pick on very often.
Don't do it.
Jonathan Gibson, maybe?
Honestly, I'm not going to play a lot of Dallas guys here. Gibson's a guy that piques my interest in tournaments. If we get news that Williams and Harris is both out, then probably a little exposure to Gibson, but we need like 25 minutes from him for him to really have that ceiling.
Yeah, he's played 3 NBA games, 20 minutes, 32 minutes, 16 minutes. So who knows what he'll get tonight.
Oh, God, I'm going to murder this guy's name. Salaja Merje?
I think it's Salah Mejri, maybe?
That was close. He started against the Spurs, played 32 minutes in that game, and had a really nice outing. Like, if we get news before lock that he's in the starting lineup again, like, I have a little interest there.
Yeah, maybe a little. I probably won't be chasing it. I think a lot of people will, just because he had 30 the other night. But if you look at his game log, he hasn't played more than 15 minutes. He's done that twice this season. So I don't know. I hate chasing that big game from a guy that doesn't see many minutes, and then you end up on him, and then he goes back to being himself.
Yeah, the only thing is, though, like you were mentioning, Bogut's doubtful. I think that we've seen the minutes increase because Bogut was out, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things. I mean, Bogut's never been really a high-minute guy anyway. He's only averaging 23, 24 on the season. So, I don't know. I'm not expecting 30 again from Mejri.
All right, fair enough. Anything from the Clippers here? We're paying premiums for all these guys, and it should be a blowout.
Yeah, it's tough to pay for them. If you're playing some kind of short slate that features them, I'm fine with Chris Paul, Blake Griffin. But in the full 13-game slate, I'm just finding better options.
I'm with you, man. And I've playing JJ a lot lately. Anytime a guy gets his shot falling, I love playing him because I think it's just like baseball. I think hot streaks are real. But I don't know if I can play JJ on this slate.
So if you don't like targeting guys that just rely on scoring, what are you doing playing him?
Yeah, JJ Redick is like one of my favorite players of all time. Drafted by the Magic. You remember when he was at Duke? It was just JJ Redick was just so fun to watch when he played for Duke.
Oh yeah, I mean, I like the guy. He's awesome. I'm just saying he relies on scoring as much as DeRozan. Probably
but he's not 9,400.
Yeah, that's true. He's cut in half.
Hey, I like KCP on some nights too, and you want to talk about a guy relying on scoring only.
Yeah, well, he's like a steals and blocks kind of guy.
Oh, yeah, I guess. All right, Denver at Utah in your home state. We have little bit of injury news here, and still we don't have a line in this game, which I thought was a little odd. But I guess it's more depending on if George Hill plays. He's questionable with a thumb injury. Favors is out. I haven't seen anything that's changed that type of news. Johnson's questionable, and then on the Denver side, just know that Harris is still out for this game. Denver played on Tuesday night. They're on a back-to-back. Anything pique your interest here for the Nuggets?
Yeah, really tough spot, like you mentioned, back-to-back, and they're facing the Jazz, who play at the slowest pace and have the best defense in the NBA in terms of points allowed per game. So not a lot to like here. Gallinari's been playing well. Wilson Chandler's been awesome off the bench, but I just don't find myself using those guys against the Jazz.
I'm going to continue to play Wilson Chandler. We were just kind of talking about it a minute ago, like guys off the bench that have massive usage rates, and Wilson Chandler has his career high usage rate this season at I think it's pushing right at 24% this season, and which doesn't sound like it's high, but you have to remember he's getting all the usage with the second unit, and then he's getting usage. I would project his usage with the second unit is probably closer to 28, 29. But he's been playing with the starters down the stretch too, which hurt that usage a little bit. And we're gonna see him against pack up second stringers, and it's just I'm gonna continue to play Wilson Chandler, even a tough matchup like Utah.
Yeah, he's been awesome, and he's just been chucking up shots, which is always good to see. I think you can play him in tournaments, probably better cash game options, but he's the one Nuggets player I'd look at.
That's it for me on the Denver side. And then on the Utah side, anything pique your interest here against the Denver team?
If George Hill is out again, he was doing some stuff in practice yesterday, but still didn't go through the full portion. So if he's out, I think Rodney Hood and Gordon Hayward are both in pretty good spots. Hood's got a high usage without Hill in the lineup. And, he's pretty cheap. Under 6K on both FanDuel and DraftKings. And then Gordon Hayward, tough matchup on paper. Nuggets are really good against small forward for some reason, but we saw what Jimmy Butler did to them last night, so I'm not too worried about that. I always like targeting Gordon Hayward at home.
Yeah, I don't mind Hayward here. I do have a lot of interest in Rodney Hood, though. We love shooting guards against Denver. That's a thing this year. It's going to be a thing, I think, for the rest of the season. So I have a lot of interest if Hill's out in Rodney Hood, which – we probably won't get that news, but if we do, it's always nice. And I really wish Hill was in this game and going to play 35 minutes because I'd have a lot of interest in him. But with him out, I'm not going to play the roulette of Exum and Shelvin Mack. I just play Hood instead.
Yeah, it feels like he's been out for so long. I miss playing him. He was awesome earlier in the season.
Yeah, he was doing really well. Thumb injuries. We want to see him get back and see a game or two before we start playing him.
What about Trey Lyles?
What about him?
Nothing.
I wanna play him, but one night he plays 20 minutes, the next he plays 30. It's just he's the perfect example of a punt power forward for a large field tournament, right?
Yeah, I think. A lot of people, we don't want him to come in and just dominate in the starting lineup. But his usage goes down playing with the starters, and the minutes haven't gone up, so it's not a great combination.
Yeah, it's just not a guy that honestly I've played this year. I fell into that trap one time, looked into this statistics, and was like, I'll find another guy in this price range.
Yeah, I'm in the same way as you.
And then, I had a little bit of Jokic on Tuesday night in tournaments. His usage has been really solid. The minutes have been really tough to guess this season, anywhere from 18 to 28. But God, I would play Jokic before I would play Lyles in this game.
Yeah, I probably would too. Actually, he's just awesome on a per minute basis, averaging 0.87 fantasy points per minute. And same with Nurkic too. He had a big game on Tuesday night. I think he had 14 points, 14 rebounds. But this is a tough front court of the Jazz, so more tournament plays than anything.
Oh, my Dwight Howard hot take yesterday was just blown up by these teams. Anyway, let's move on. We have Minnesota heading to New Orleans. We have a 210 total in this game. New Orleans favored by 1. We have questionable on Anthony Davis. The good thing about Anthony Davis is he's able to return in that fourth quarter of that game. Looked fine once he returned. We kind of disappeared for a couple quarters after heading into the crowd, and I think he's going to be fine, to be honest.
What are the Pelicans doing?
Yeah, why was he playing in the fourth quarter up by 30?
He misses second and third quarter. They're up by 30, and they have a game the next night, and they put him back in to play almost the entire fourth quarter.
It was nice to see him get back out there. I can't lie, but
I mean, if you had him, yeah. I mean, he's injury prone. You don't put him out there after he gets hurt when you're up by 30. I don't get it.
We'll have to pay attention to the news on him throughout the day. I honestly think he's going to be okay. He returned to the court. His jump shot was fine. He was dunking. Like he's fine. What's your thoughts on Davis in this game?
So absolutely don't use him in cash games. Who knows what he's going to injure next. But great tournament play. I mean, when he's healthy, when he's getting full minutes, he has 60, 70 fantasy point upside. So I'm going to have a bunch of shares in tournament, especially on DraftKings at only $10,700. Pretty cheap over there.
Dude, I'm going to actually end up making money on Tuesday's slate, which I didn't think would happen. And a lot of that reason is finally the Lakers and Russell Westbrook decided he wanted to show up. But Tim Frazier, one of my highest exposed guys here on Tuesday night, he's been so good since Drew Holiday's come back.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I thought he was going to see a decrease in usage and minutes, but 28, 37, and 53 fantasy points in last 3 games since Holiday came back. I think you can play him again. He's still cheap across the industry. I think the site's kind of overreacted to Holiday coming back as well. So, he's still cheap everywhere, especially over on rosters, 8,300. You can play him everywhere pretty much.
Yeah, spoiler alert, he might be in the value section of rosters when we get there. Spoiler alert. Anyway, what's your thoughts on Drew Holiday here? I don't have DraftKings pulled up. Is he still super cheap over there?
Yeah, so he's 6,700 on DraftKings, which is too cheap. He's been really good since coming back from his injury. He's at least 29 fantasy points in every game. FanDuel, a little too expensive, though, 7,900.
FanDuel is where you get your Frazier exposure because, like you were saying, it's so cheap over there for FanDuel to get Frazier in your lineup.
Yep, I agree.
Anybody else from New Orleans that you like here?
Cunningham's been playing big minutes, but don't think you need to go, that deep in a 13-game slate.
Yeah, I actually had him in some lineups, and when we get the news that Jones was going to play with his sickness, I moved off of Cunningham. What did he end up with on Tuesday night?
I can look it up real quick.
Oh, 22.5, which at almost, he's still mid-salary, so I wouldn't have hated that. The reason I don't hate him is because he's min salary, but Terrence Jones has been playing really well lately. What's your thoughts on Jones? God, if he just played 30 minutes a night, I would play him every night at 5,100.
Yeah, I would too. It's just tough when him and Anthony Davis are both healthy. I don't know what to expect. A lot of his production Tuesday night came, when Davis was out. So I'll probably just be avoiding him for now. Yeah, his price just keeps coming up.
Yeah, the only way that I'm playing him is if we get news for some reason he's back in the starting lineup. That's when I'll probably move off of Jones or move off of Davis and have some Jones.
Yeah, I agree.
Which is crazy, but that's kind of how I look at it. Anyway, let's look at the other side of this game. Karl-Anthony Towns, the guy's a beast.
Yeah, he's arguably the most consistent center in the NBA, and it's his second year. He's just been awesome. I'm going to keep playing him. I think he should be above 9,000 here shortly. So until he gets there, I'm just going to keep playing him.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And people love comparing him and Anthony Davis. I think both these guys try to show each other up in this game. I know there's no statistical backing of that, but I think that's what happens here.
Did you see that double pump fake you put on Embiid and then took it to the rack and dunked it?
I did. I did. The guy's a beast. What's your thoughts on the gorgeous dong?
I can never seem to get him right, but this seems like a good spot for him. He's been playing well the last few games, and Pelicans have not done that great against power forwards, even though Anthony Davis is a pretty good defender.
Yeah, and like just so everybody knows, like I know it's gonna look like the DVP against centers is really good for New Orleans, but when centers have played over 30 minutes, I think 4 or 5 times out of those 5 or 6 times, like they've put up 35 fantasy points. They've just played some really bad centers this year, and I feel like that's skewing the numbers a lot in the DVP.
Yeah, I agree. And Ashik isn't going to be able to guard Towns on the perimeter and on the defensive end. Ashik never strays far from the hoops, so Towns is going to be right there for a bunch of rebounds. Just perfect spot for him, in my opinion.
Solomon Hill had a big game on Tuesday night. I'm just going to go ahead and say don't chase those points.
Yeah, I'm not chasing those points either. What about Andrew Wiggins? Are you a Wiggins guy?
I'm not a Wiggins guy. I don't mind Wiggins, but like the issue with Wiggins is Levine, right?
Yeah, I mean, I like him more this year just because he's playing so many minutes, and his usage rate has gone up since last year. I think it's a good spot to buy low on him in tournaments. He's coming off of 2 really bad games in a row, and his price is back under 7K. So I like him quite a bit in tournaments. Probably kind of a similar problem as Rosen, does rely on scoring a little bit too much, but he has had a couple games with some big rebounding numbers.
Yeah, but you're not paying 9,400. Just going back
Yeah.
to that point, you're not paying that $9,000 price tag. So I could definitely get behind Wiggins in tournaments here, and I could get behind Rubio in tournaments here. It's just I expect this game to stay close, and I expect it to be over that 210 total. So I do like this game a lot. I'll have a lot of exposure. So let's move on, though. Another good game here on the slate. Oklahoma City at Sacramento, 208 total. Sacramento favored by 2.5. No injury news in this game. We'll start with the Oklahoma side. Victor Oladipo playing well right now, and Russell Westbrook is a beast.
Yeah, Westbrook's monster. I watched that fourth quarter against the Lakers on Tuesday night, and yeah, he hit just a ton of threes, doing everything. Uh, almost led the comeback. But anyway, gotta like his match against Ty Lawson, Darren Collison. Just keep playing him. FanDuel is still too cheap at 11.6. I don't know why he's not above 12K yet.
Is this a night that we might play Westbrook over Harden? I know it's been a lot of like the other way around most of the season, but I feel like this might be a spot where we pay for Westbrook over Harden.
Yeah, the thing for me is that there's always more point guard options than shooting guard, but it'll probably they're probably very close for me. It'll just depend on who I like more at the position.
Yeah, outside of Westbrook and Oladipo, anybody else from Oklahoma City here?
Steven Adams should log a bunch of minutes. He's going to be facing DeMarcus Cousins, so if he can stay out of foul trouble, I'm guessing he's going to go minute for minute with Cousins, and so I kind of like him at 4,900 on FanDuel, but probably not a ton of upside there.
Your contrarian play of the day, Cantor. Really, really kind of iffy game against Lakers on Tuesday night, but like what you were just saying, if Adams can stay out of foul trouble against Boogie, then he'll be minute for minute. If not, Cantor's going to be that guy. Like, don't spend a lot of your bankroll on it, but if you're playing multiple entries here on tonight's slate, just sprinkle in maybe one or two Cantors here, just in case that does happen with Adams.
Yeah, if you pull up his game log and look through it, he has like a 4.4 and a -1. I think those were the 2 nights that I played him. So I just wrote him off after that.
Oh man, a guy that definitely
-1.
Oh man, what are your thoughts here on Boogie? We've talked about a lot of centers on the slate. Be a night that you probably get Boogie at a pretty low ownership here.
Yeah, should definitely be low owned, and he's matchup proof. But Steven Adams is probably top 2 or 3 best defending centers in the NBA. I think it's a night you just pay down, go to Towns instead of Cousins.
I don't hate that strategy. And then on the flip side of that strategy, in tournaments, Cousins could be really contrarian. And anytime you can get to Marcus Cousins under 10%, you kind of want to have a little exposure, in my opinion. Darren Collison, I've been saying it. All I needed was minutes, and the minutes are there. I definitely like Darren Collison in this matchup.
Yeah, a little expensive on FanDuel, but great deal over on DraftKings. 5,400. He's had at least 30 fantasy points in 2 of his last 4 games and at least 24 in 4 of his last 5. So I definitely like that call. Nice matchup, too.
Anybody else here? Are we ready to move on?
Moving on.
Moving on, Lakers, Golden State, last game of the night, and oh, buddy, that's all I'm gonna say. This game should be like the Lakers. I hate to say it, but the Lakers look a little legit this season. One of the highest projected paces of the slate. We don't have a total in this game yet. We're waiting on injury news on Russell and Randall. What's your thoughts here on the Lakers side? Do you think we see Russell back in this game?
I can't imagine so. Luke Walton said that, unless he can be.
He was ruled out. Never mind. I lied.
Oh, already for tomorrow?
Yeah, they said at 8:42 Eastern he's been ruled out for the team's next 2 games against the Thunder and Warriors. So we already have the news that Russell's out for this game.
Well, I was going to say I think he's going to sit, but now I guess I don't have to.
Sorry, man. I didn't even see that news. Like, I do all the injuries before we even start, and I kind of overlooked that one. But I love the fact that we have that news already.
Yeah, that definitely helps. Last night, the fact that he got ruled out came out, I think, 8 minutes after lock, which was really awesome.
Which was great because we all kind of thought that he was going to be out. Julius Randle, he kind of tried to play through the hip injury. He played 21 minutes against Oklahoma City. Like, it's a back-to-back. He played awful in that game. Like, he could sit in this game too.
Yeah, I definitely wouldn't be surprised. I think when the line comes out, it's going to be, at least 16 or so. I just never know what to do when the Warriors are such big favorites at home. It's hard for me to target players against them just because I don't know how many minutes anyone's going to play.
I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do when we get to the Warriors, but let's talk Lakers real fast. I know Lou Williams didn't get it going here, but I feel like this is a great bounce-back spot for him. I'm going to have a lot of exposure to Lou Williams here.
Yeah, if they're going to keep it close, it'll probably be on a big game from him. I don't mind Larry Nance, too. He should see big minutes. Even if Julius Randle plays, I think Nance is going to see quite a bit of run in here. And then Jordan Clarkson as well. Jose Calderon had a big game on Tuesday night, but I still like Clarkson and Williams a lot more than I like Calderon.
Yeah, Clarkson gives a massive bump in usage. If you guys have premium here at RotoGrinders, even if you don't, the NBA IQ research tool thing that is it Inspire?
Yeah.
He does every day. He was pointing out like how much of a bump that Clarkson gets in usage without Russell on the floor. And at 4,900 on FanDuel, I definitely think you need to look at Clarkson in this matchup against Golden State.
Yeah, I do too. I'm worried the second half of back-to-back. They all played big minutes last night. They're just going to get smoked. I don't know what to do. Did
Clarkson play a bunch of minutes, though? I think he was under 30, right?
Clarkson and Williams didn't, because those were the 2 guys that we had, I think.
Yeah, so let's hope that they get the minutes in this game, and we make all of our money back from Tuesday, which actually Tuesday ended up okay.
What about Calderon, a min salary?
Is it Chasen?
Yes.
Like, he had God, it's just I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to just write that game off. I'm going to say, okay, move on, and I'm just going to go back to the guys that, like I played last night, just because I feel like this is the same type of spot.
Yep, I'll have 0 Calderon exposure.
Going to the Golden State, like, I'm going to start a lot of my lineups with Draymond Green tonight.
Yeah, I like him in tournaments. I like all these guys in tournaments. Lakers not great defensively. Both these teams like to push the pace. Should be a ton of points scored, but if you're taking any of these guys, you just got to be okay knowing that they can only see 3 quarters.
Yeah, and Draymond's a guy that can fill the stat sheet.
Yeah, he does everything, and his production has been down a little bit lately, which should help lower his ownership. He's probably my favorite guy here, too. I also like Curry. Under 9K on both FanDuel and DraftKings. His usage has just gone up with almost every game of the season, so I do like him, too.
I like Curry every night.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on Clay?
Better plays for me at shooting guard.
Yeah, I agree. Durant's not bad either.
Yeah, I've been playing Durant. He's probably been the guy I've been playing the most from the Warriors this season. He's been the most consistent for sure. But again, at that price, I think you can go to LeBron at small forward, or you can just pay down and then pay up at some of the other positions.
All right. Any other final thoughts on the slate?
No. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. No NBA on Thursday, so no content for me or you.
No, it's going to be just fantastic to enjoy some fantasy football on Thanksgiving. And for those you guys, the football podcast will be up later in the afternoon on Wednesday. CJ and I are going to record a little early this week to get some thoughts out there on the Thanksgiving game. Before we get out of here, Notorious, let's talk rosters, value plays every day. We look at 3 guys under 10K over at rosters.com. And judging by what we were talking about on the podcast, I think you're going to like the 3 guys that I came up with today. I'm going to start it off in Houston, and Clint Capella is 8,700 over on rosters. I'm guessing you're behind that one.
Yes, love Capella. He's been awesome last 6 games. Great value play on rosters.
Next guy I have at 8,300 is Tim Frazier. We talked about him with Drew Holiday returning. Like, this guy's been playing really well, and 8,300 is just too cheap.
Yeah, I love these really short point guards. Frazier, Isaiah Thomas, both in great spots. So, yeah, I'm on board there too.
And I'm going to end in the last game of the night, the Lakers at Golden State, and Jordan Clarkson is 9,000. We just got done talking about his usage bump with Russell out. I had Russell as doubtful, and now that we know that he's out, I really like Clarkson at 9,000 here on this slate.
Yeah, I do too. I don't think Calderon's going to get as many minutes as he did on Tuesday night, so I like that quite a bit.
All right, my friend. Well, I hope you and your family have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope everybody else has a great night in basketball. We'll be back with the football podcast on Wednesday afternoon. Good luck in your contest tonight, and we'll see you then.